What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can always follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Once again, we are inching closer and closer to Packers Bucks this coming Sunday, but of course, we had some big news in the Packers sphere, which I get to start off by telling you I'm an idiot and I was wrong. In the middle of yesterday's podcast, talked about Tramon Williams, talked about it potentially being his last snap in the NFL, told you point blank he would not be eligible to sign with the Packers. And here we are. Tramon Williams, by all accounts, is set to sign with the Green Bay Packers. So I say he can't be signed, and Brian Gutekunst says, hold my beer. First of all, hell yes, awesome on Tramon Williams. How can you not be excited about bringing one of the all-time great Packers back, having him be part of this team, hopefully getting him a Super Bowl ring, and just one of the great veteran leaders in all the NFL, period. End of story. To bring him back in the locker room and have him be a part of this defense. It just doesn't get much better than that as you're looking to sign free agents, on January 20th or January 21st. So kudos to Brian Gutekunst once again for figuring out a way to add to the roster at this point in the season. How could Green Bay do this? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. So Ken Ingalls put out a tweet and kind of had this hypothesis and kind of idea that he's is working on, and sounds to be right, I guess, that if a player is released from another team when the season is done, they automatically revert to waivers. And if that's the case, when they go to waivers, once the regular season's done, then it would go to waivers actually in the postseason once the day after the Super Bowl is done, basically, and at the end of the season. So because they'd go on waivers and it goes to the end of the season or after the Super Bowl, nobody would be able to claim that player. However, what Ken's stating is that because Tramon Williams had no additional deals left or no additional years left on his deal, waiving him doesn't do anything. You can't claim him at the end of the season because there's nothing to claim. He just become an immediate unrestricted free agent. So with that in mind, when he is released, he can't be waived. He can only be released from his contract. That basically makes him a free man, an unrestricted free agent, and able to sign with any team. For the most part, teams have avoided doing this. And the reason being is, I'm sure, one, maybe, competitive advantage, I guess. I don't know. But two, let's say Tramon Williams did go out and sign a big contract with the team in the offseason. Rather unlikely, but let's say he did. He could count towards the compensatory formula if the Ravens just kept him on the roster for the remainder of the season. And there's zero benefit. There's absolutely zero benefit for the Ravens releasing Tramon Williams at that point. They might as well just wait till the end of the season. The season's done and his contract just tolls and it's off. There's no reason to release him. There's no reason to basically put him out on in free agency and allow him to be signed. My guess, if I had to guess, is Tramon Williams went to the Ravens and said, I would like to be released, or his agent, and maybe knowing this rule, went to the Ravens and said, we would like to be released. We think we might have a chance to sign on with the Packers and go play with them for the remainder of the season. The Ravens know that Tramon very likely could be in the last year of his career. Even if he's not in place next year, the odds that he signs a contract that would be used in the compensatory pick formula are very, very small. So they grant his release, and Tramon Williams is able to go out and sign with any of the four remaining teams, including, of course, your Green Bay Packers. So here we are. Somehow, Tramon Williams is able to sign with the Green Bay Packers. This is not the same situation as Jared Veldheer. So I know some people pointed out, well, they just did the same with Jared Veldheer. And, you had mentioned earlier that the Packers could sign Veldheer. Well, why couldn't they sign Tramon Williams? The difference here, Veldheer was on the Colts practice squad. Tramon was actually legitimately on the Ravens 53-man roster. So I did not think that was possible. I apologize for being wrong. I am happy to be wrong in this situation that they could sign him. And, we'll see if things get finalized. Maybe as you're listening to this, everything already has. But again, it sounds by all accounts that Tramon Williams will be a Green Bay Packer. He was already in Green Bay. And for those wondering if he can play, I think we should know this drill by now because Snacks Harrison and Jared Valdir basically followed the same course of action. But yes, he did get a private jet into Green Bay. He followed the protocols out of Baltimore and picked them up back in Green Bay. So assuming he continues to test negative, he will be able to play. Hopefully we don't have a Jared Valdir redo, but yes, he would be able to practice on Thursday, today as you're listening to this, and he would be eligible to play on Sunday, which of course begs the question, how do you use Tramon Williams and what can he still bring to the team? I don't think, and here I could be wrong again, I don't think that any of the starting, caliber defensive backs are in any jeopardy of losing their spot. Obviously not J.A. or Amos or Savage, and including certainly not Kevin King. I know people are saying, well, he'll just go in and play for Kevin King. That's not going to happen. And I would be shocked as well if he, played that nickel corner for Chandon Sullivan. Maybe shocked is strong. I'd be very surprised. I wouldn't be shocked maybe, but I'd be very surprised. I think there could be an avenue there. But I do think it's very possible that he immediately becomes the sixth defensive back. Will Redmond has struggled in that role. And let's just put it this way. It is very clear to me and probably clear to you that they don't trust any of the sixth defensive backs on the team. I don't think they trust Will Redmond. I don't think they trust Vernon Scott quite yet, Henry Black. They obviously don't trust Josh Jackson and Kadar Hallman, who have been inactive over the course of the last month or so. Not both of them usually combined, but this last game, both of them were inactive. So I think it's relatively clear that they don't have a true sixth defensive back that they trust. I would expect Tramon Williams to immediately take that dime defensive back role for Green Bay. And it becomes a little bit interesting. We saw some Will Redmond in the slot this past week. In fact, if you go back to that 2-minute drill versus the Rams, there were a couple plays that Will Redmond was involved with that I think if Tramon Williams was maybe playing that position, maybe you have a little bit better success during that drill. So I think that makes perfect sense for him to play that. But you do have some situations where that sixth defensive back has been playing at safety and not because they're using Savage up more. They're using Amos as a nickel or dime linebacker. They're using those guys in some different roles. So Redmond's had to play some safety. So then that begs the question, what could Green Bay do? If they want Tramon to be on the field instead of Will Redmond, would Tramon play safety? I think there's two options. First of all, going back to 2018, if I'm remembering correctly, I think the last year of Mike McCarthy, they did play Tramon Williams quite a bit at safety, and he looked fine doing it, and he certainly has some experience playing safety, including in Mike Pettine's defense. So that's definitely a possibility that they could put him back in a safety type role, pairing him next to a Darnell Savage or an Adrian Amos, so that it allows some of those other players to play up and still get their six best defensive backs on the field. Another option would be to play Tramon in the slot and actually use Chandon Sullivan as that sixth, as the safety next to either Amos or Darnell Savage. And if you remember, going back to the 2019 season, the start of the season, it wasn't sure that Chandon Sullivan was going to make the roster. He had an amazing training camp, and he was kind of going to be maybe on the fringe of getting cut or not. And in that last preseason game in 2019, he actually went out and played safety, kind of trying to prove, hey, I have some versatility and I can do this. He has been out on the field in that position for Mike Pettine and for Green Bay in the past. He does have some positional versatility there. He has backed up and kind of played safety. I'd have to go back. I don't think he's ever lined up at safety, but there have been some plays where as like a corner and they're either doing something exotic or bringing a blitz where he backs up and plays like cover 3 or cover 2 almost in a safety role. He has done some of that, but I definitely think it's within the realm of possibility that in some of those dime situations that you could have Tramon in the slot playing corner, and again you could have Chandon playing safety if you so wanted to in that situation. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all that Tramon could be brought in and play in that dime right away. Again, I'd be surprised if he would get bumped up in that nickel situation over Chandon Sullivan, but as far as Tramon Williams goes in the last 24 hours, I've been wrong before, so I could very well be wrong again. Another point that was brought up about him potentially returning punts or playing special teams, I don't see him being put out there as a punt returner with Tavon Austin on the team. However, if something were to happen to Austin, or if Austin were to have another fumble or something like that, Tramon's not going to get you anything as a returner, right? But he's incredibly safe, knows how to, field the ball correctly, and he's not going to put the ball on the ground. So if they needed a situation where they just wanted somebody super safe, maybe they were going for a punt block, maybe it's the end of game sort of scenario and they're not trying to get any yards, you can trust Tramon to make the right decision. Just take a fair catch and make sure, he's so sure-handed in those situations. You definitely could have a role where he's kind of your safe punt returner. I don't expect him to beat out Tavon Austin for the overall punt returner role. Certainly Tramon's not going to be used as a kick returner, but there could be some special teams ability there, again, if they needed more of a safe punt returner, or again, if something would happen to Tavon Austin. So of course this led me to beg the question, all right, Green Bay, I basically posted, Green Bay is basically doing the whole NBA mid-season moves where you've got a playoff team and all these veteran players just got cut from teams that weren't going to make the playoffs, and you've got all these veteran players that are signing with playoff teams. So Green Bay's been using the NBA formula, going out and getting Tavon Austin, Snacks Harrison, Jared Valdir, and now Tramon Williams. So that begged the question, so when does Charles Woodson come in next and, kind of finish things off and, maybe play 2 more games with Green Bay? I tweeted that and obviously tagged Charles Woodson, and he posted a Forrest Gump gif of Gump, kind of running out and sprinting down the road. So Charles is ready to go apparently, and just kind of a cool moment there with Charles Woodson. But they should definitely have him at the game, probably not as a player, but it would be cool to see him back in Green Bay. Maybe he can give one more speech about going to Washington. So that would be interesting. One last topic of discussion for today. I know everyone's been talking about the weather. What is it going to be for Sunday? Will it be a factor? I'm certainly not a meteorologist. I can pretend to be a lot of different things, but a weatherman I am not, or a weather person, or a meteorologist, whatever you want to call it, I am not. Apparently, allegedly, according to weather.com, it's supposed to be about 27 degrees. 1 to 3 inches of snow maybe throughout the day. I've heard a couple different things that it could come more like Saturday night into Sunday morning. I've also seen some that it could come more at Sunday afternoon, kind of during the game. It doesn't seem like either way it's going to be something that's going to really build up and be like this kind of snowball type of game. But you could have some flurries, maybe similar to what happened in the past game where you saw some of the snow at Lambeau Field, maybe even a little bit more than that. Winds about 5 to 10 miles per hour, but this again begs the question, how much of an effect will this be? And ultimately, not much. I don't think this game is going to be decided because Ndamukong Suh is too cold, right? You remember back, and I don't want to bring up this memory too much here, but if you remember back when Atlanta came to Green Bay and it was snowing and Michael Vick was there, the weather played no part. Atlanta crushed Green Bay in that game, ran past Hardy Nickerson, who I don't think had knees left at that point, and watching a 4.3 40 Michael Vick in his prime trying to, and Hardy Nickerson try to chase him at age like 74 was one of the least favorite Packer memories I'll ever have in my life. But Atlanta, a Southern team coming in. At that point, I believe Green Bay had been undefeated in the playoffs at Lambeau all time, if memory serves. And, Atlanta comes in and they crush Green Bay. So the weather can be a factor, but it's not going to ultimately swing the course of the game likely one way or the other. But I do think it does give Green Bay some advantages. First of all, if you are a team from Florida, I think most of us who have been in Wisconsin have traveled somewhere south during the winter at one point or another, and enjoying some 70, 80, degree weather, and then you get back to Green Bay or Wisconsin and you step off the plane and it's 20 degrees and your system is just in shock because you've just been, 70, 80 degree weather. Well, you've had a team that's been there basically the entire season, enjoying this, amazing weather in Florida, and getting off a plane and now having to go play outside for a few hours in 20 degree weather. Yeah, that can be a little bit of a shock to the system. And if, we don't know exactly the extent of the bumps and bruises that Tampa Bay has, but if you've got an injury, that cold can make it throb a little bit more painful. Maybe you're focused on that a little bit more. Maybe you're focused on being cold a little bit more. And for those who are in Green Bay, like the Packers all the time, you get used to it. And it's not as big of a deal when you go out and have to be outside for a period of time. And Green Bay's been practicing in those type of elements. So I do think there's a small advantage there. But more importantly, I think where the real advantage is going to come in this game, obviously you have the fans and the crowd, and that'll be a part. But I also think just the footing. My guess is, the grass was pretty, cut and trimmed pretty low in Tampa, allowing that defense to play fast with, Devin White and Levante David and Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh in those corners and Winfield and so on and so forth. My guess is they're playing on a fast track. They want to get those wide receivers going. If I had to guess, I would guess that lawn is going to be just a little bit thicker in Green Bay this week. We've also seen teams come in and have issues with slipping and falling and not being able to stay on their feet. Green Bay's going to know the right cleats. They're going to know the right equipment. They're going to know how to, weather the elements a little bit better. And again, does that ultimately swing the series of events in a game like this? Probably not. But I do think it does give Green Bay some advantage. So enjoy the cold, enjoy maybe some snow flurries here and there. Hopefully it does give Green Bay some advantage. Bruce Arians today said it won't play a factor at all. It's probably the case, but it's a cool storyline to talk about anyway. And you just have to love the quote-unquote frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, NFC Championship game against a Florida team. What more do you want if you're the Green Bay Packers? So that's going to do it for me. Make sure to check out Jacob, Maggie, and Jimmy on today's Pack-A-Day podcast over on the audio version. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be right back here tomorrow for an all-new, brand-new episode. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.